What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. Today, we're going to discuss the Blazers offseason, and we're going to get your grades in the chat poll that's live right now. We're also going to talk about what ESPN graded for the Blazers offseason, which was a C. Was that too harsh? Was that too generous? Or was that just right? This is going to serve as a bit of an offseason recap of sorts, as I assume at this point that the Blazers are done making moves. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. They have 15 roster spots filled out, 14 healthy players. You have Damian Lillard, of course. He's going to be out for next season as well. And Jrue Holiday, the Blazers traded for. He has his introductory press conference tomorrow morning. And that's what we have on tap for you guys today. It'll probably be a little bit of a shorter stream, going to try and keep it to about an hour. Eric, nice Reds shirt, man. They've been playing some good baseball. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Tori, how was your weekend? How was Chat's weekend?
My weekend was honestly pretty brutal. So, I messed.
Is there a story?
Yeah, I messed up my eye, in case you can't tell by my right eye. I messed up my eye. Just wearing contacts that were a bit worn. It irritated my eye. Tried to wear them with an irritated eye. Scratched my eye. It's now like I'm just dealing with the fallout of that. Like, I have to take drops every hour, and I have to see. I had to go to the doctors yesterday, today, and Thursday. So I'm going to be in glasses for a while, man, which sucks. I do not like wearing glasses, and I don't like my eye being all weird looking. But, it's this is one of those days where I wish I was on radio instead of YouTube. But here I am.
You can hide your face behind that pop screen or something.
Yeah. Right here. This is how I'll do the whole entire show. Anyway. Chat, hopefully you guys had a good weekend. Let us know in the live chat what you were up to this weekend. And, I'm excited that we get a press conference tomorrow, Eric. That'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, they finally announced what's going on with Jrue, huh?
Yeah, so I thought they were just going to wait until Media Day, but I guess they got him to decide to come up to Portland right now, which it was actually a bit of a surprise to hear that. I thought they were just going to wait until basically training camp.
Yeah, you'd figure at this point, why not? But, I wonder if they'll be asked why. That was one surprising thing. I know the last press conference was all about Dame, but I was surprised no one actually asked why there hasn't been a Jrue press conference yet.
So I think when he was up in Portland, a lot of the media were down in Summer League, and, of course, if you're going to have a press conference, you're going to have media.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why they waited. Tomorrow's just kind of a random day to announce it, but the funny thing is Anthony Simons hasn't been announced there in Boston either, so I was wondering who was going to get the first press conference there. There's been rumors about the Celtics potentially trying to flip Simons. I don't think that's going to happen either. I think Simons is going to be a Boston Celtic next year, and I've been saying since the Blazers traded for Jrue Holiday that I expect Jrue Holiday to be wearing Blazer colors on his uniform next year, even though there's less color on the uniform next year. Still going to be Blazer colors on his uniform next year. That's a shout out to the new jerseys, the rehashed jerseys, whatever you want to call them. We talked about that last stream. If you want our opinions on that, check out last stream after this one. But I'm not really too interested in anything from this press conference. I guess maybe part of that is because it comes on the heels of Dame's press conference, which there was a lot of interesting quotes and a lot of intrigue going into that press conference after he demanded a trade 2 years ago. So this is just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, Jrue's going to talk. He's probably not going to say anything controversial. I honestly don't expect really one soundbite from this. I guess maybe the most interesting thing would be like Joe and his calculus for the trade if he expands on that, but I assume that is going to be a bunch of, well, he's a great veteran presence, he's a champion, he's a great defender, fits what we're trying to do here. It's going to be a lot of that, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the betting odds on who's going to ask Jrue if he wants to be here? Is that Aaron Fentress?
Oh, it's definitely Aaron Fentress. I'm taking, honestly, it might be negative It might be like
Yeah.
negative 110 that Aaron Fentress asks him about if he's mad being in Portland or not, or some question along those lines. You know what? And I'm taking that bet, even though those aren't the greatest odds. Like, I think that'll be the question tomorrow. So, as YouTubers, we can just sit back here and guess what the media asks instead of asking our own questions. But yeah, we won't react to it live, but of course we'll cover it on Thursday. We will discuss anything from that press conference that comes to mind, and you can follow us on Twitter for more maybe reactionary thoughts, although I tweet a lot more than Eric nowadays.
Yeah. You'll discuss it on Thursday.
Yeah. Yep. So, with that being said, I'm really looking forward to recapping the Blazers offseason on this stream. And if you're watching back after the fact and can't vote in our live poll, feel free to leave your grade in the comment section. Because there was an ESPN article grading the Portland Trail Blazers offseason, Eric. Did you see this article? Do you want to...
The one where it said we only had 3 picks? No, that was the rebuilding one.
Yeah. So, no, it was a different article. So they graded a C. They graded the Blazers offseason a C. And honestly, like, the write-up behind it wasn't too interesting. But I thought it raised the question, is that being too harsh to the Portland Trail Blazers? Because I feel like Blazer fans are absolutely celebrating this offseason. And I'm celebrating the Dame move, and I spoke as to their reasoning for the Jrue move, even though it wasn't the best move, even though that contract is definitely questionable. And Jerami Grant still here. The Young pick was a little bit of a stretch, right? But it seems like while Blazer fans are ecstatic about this offseason, people that cover the league, NBA media, whatever you want to call them, it seems like their opinions on this Blazers offseason is like, it's okay. To some people who think it's just like not even a good offseason at all. So I thought that raised a really interesting conversation, because we're not going to sit here and tell you that we think the Blazers had a good offseason if we think they didn't, right? Even though we're Blazer fans, we try not to be biased. We try and be fair to the team, whether it's in praise or in criticism. We try and be fair to the team. So I thought this was the perfect opportunity for us to chime in, give our grades, give our reasoning as to why, and also have you guys vote in that chat poll, which is live right now. Right now, 31% say A, 56% say B. And that speaks to what I was just talking about, how Blazer fans are much happier with their offseason than NBA media seems to be, although that probably is always the case. So, Eric, I'll start it off with you. What would you grade this Portland Trail Blazers offseason and why?
Well, first of all, I don't think a C is necessarily harsh. I think if you look at it from the perspective that Dame isn't going to play this year, so that signing doesn't necessarily help them this season on the court. Now, you can argue, of course, that that'll help them behind the scenes and with player development and things like that. I think that signing, while it is awesome for us true Blazer fans, I don't know if that necessarily factors too much into someone's off-season grade on a team, just getting him back for nostalgic reasons this season. And then also, it's really weird that I saw this tweet. I was trying to find it, but Chat can help me out and find out or who said this, but someone reported, it might have been Bill Simmons or someone reported that like NBA executives aren't sold yet on Young, and it's like, why even say that? Like,
they were supposed to be sold already?
Yeah, who's like talking to executives on other teams about him, and like he's supposed to be like some proven project or some proven product, like a couple months after being drafted, just because of 4 summer league games. So I thought that was kind of weird, but just from a national perspective, if you're not completely sold on that pick or don't necessarily believe that he's the second coming of Jokic or whatever, I can also see why that isn't particularly a great grade there. And then to a lot of people, the Jrue trade is weird. Trading a 26-year-old, I think Simons is, guard for a 35-year-old guard on a much longer contract and stuff like that. So it is. I do get why some people would say that. Given everything involved, I'd probably say B-ish for me. Like super stoked Dame's back. Obviously that jumped the rating way up, and I think the potential of this offseason, getting Dame back in a year, if Young develops like they're hoping he will, and then giving a little bit of a runway to some of the younger guys like Scoot and Sharp to get some more minutes and more of a role, I think when you combine all those things, it was a good enough offseason. I still don't think it's like the best possible offseason they could have had, but B is a solid grade for me. Are you muted?
I was, but I was kind of thinking. Anyway, this was a weird offseason. In terms of, normally when there's a move made, I either like it or dislike it, and nothing changes my mind. And that's not to say my mind can't be changed, it's just I have a pretty strong opinion about it, and that doesn't change. But this was a weird offseason in terms of the Jrue trade. At first, it was kind of like, what the hell? What the hell is this? He's making an insane amount of money for the next 3 years. He's already 35. The contract's bad. But I can see the organization's thinking with the move. And that got me to the point where it's like, I don't think it was a great trade, but I understand what they're trying to do, and I can accept it for that reason, right? And I feel like if you just look on it from an outside perspective where you don't understand what the organization is trying to do, then it looks like a very questionable trade, and that's why you would maybe give it a worse grade. Whereas I can sit here and talk to the mentorship aspect of it and speak to the Blazers trying to be a top 5 defensive team next year, and I do think with Jrue Holiday in tow in the defensive roster they have right now, I think they have a chance of being a top 5 defense next year, and I think that would be something special. And now it just makes even more sense. You're bringing Dame back, even though that's going to be, he's going to miss next year. You have such a great, potentially lethal defense. The Jrue trade makes sense to me, given that I don't think Anthony Simons really had any value, and then you hear stuff like, oh, Boston might be trying to flip him. They haven't flipped him. So either that noise is not true, or Boston just simply can't get back what they were maybe hoping they could get back for Anthony Simons. So at the end of the day, the Jrue trade, I give it probably, like in itself, a B- C+. That's a little bit higher. I think I gave it a C or a C- the day it happened. But I've come around to it a little bit more, just trying to see it from the organization's point of view. And listen, I'll try and see a lot of things from the organization's point of view, and I will not come around to it. I still cannot see the Norman Powell trade from the organization's point of view. I still can't see why they botched the protections on the pick that they got back for CJ in that trade from the organization's point of view. Like, I think some things they've done is indefensible in terms of them just being simply bad moves. I can't excuse why Jerami Grant is still on this freaking roster on the contract that Joe Cronin willingly gave him. But I did come around a little bit on the Jrue trade, and I did come around a bit more on the Young Hansen pick. At the time, it just looked like an insane reach. But then when you hear about teams right behind the Blazers, we're going to select him, and I mean, I see the vision with drafting a big with his skill set at 16, right? Like, you're taking a swing, and I respect that. I respect that. Well, while compared to mock drafts, everybody's big boards, everybody's mock drafts, it's not a great value pick. It's a lot of upside for that point in the draft, and at that point, it's like, you might as well swing we've seen swings at that point in the draft for like high upside guys work out before, and maybe he's this version. So obviously in hindsight, 5 years down the line, we'll be able to give a more complete grade, seeing how Dame returns and seeing how young Hansen progresses. But I've come around to the pick. At the time on draft day, I really did not like it. Now, it's still kind of weird that you spent a 7th overall pick and then a 16th overall pick on two centers that can only play drop scheme and can't really play next to each other. Although maybe Klingon can be smart enough to run multiple schemes. But basically, you can't play Young and Klingon together, so it is a little bit weird in that retrospect. And there was a guy I really, really wanted who looked amazing in Summer League that I think could end up being a fringe star caliber player, and that's Nick Clifford in Sacramento. He looked phenomenal. So hindsight's going to rule here, but at this point in time, like, I get the pick. I'm cool with the pick. And then, of course, you got the Dame pickup. I don't think the Blake Wesley thing factors into this offseason really much at all. I like the move for the final roster spot, but I don't think it really matters. The Dame trade kind of carries the offseason for me. The Dame signing carries the offseason for me. I'd probably give it a B. I'm very comfortable giving it a B. I think C is a little bit harsh. I get it, but I think overall, everything in totality, it was a pretty good offseason. And without the Dame signing, I would be sitting here probably giving it a C+. So, I don't want to just say it's a straight up A just because of Dame, even though I'm very well tempted to. But like B+, that's the range I'm in for the Blazers grade this offseason.
So Kyle Neely says you don't need to play our two big men next to each other. That's not what Torrey's saying. He's saying that if you have two centers let's face it, we spent a first-round pick on each of them. Those are probably our centers moving forward. The problem is if they're exactly the same style of play, it's good that you have two good big men in a rotation, but you're not able to switch up and run different schemes if they're both the exact same type and only can play a certain type of defense. So what Torrey is saying is they don't have a switch up. If one of them gets played off the court because the defense is attacking our drop in a certain way, we don't have the other one that can come in and do something different. Right now, Young is just a worse version of the same defender that Klingon is. Now, he might do some stuff offensively that are much better than Klingon, and that might pan out to be true. But we're just talking schematically from defense. When you have two centers that have to play in a certain style and can't be switchable on the perimeter, you are kind of limited onto what your schemes can do. And when Torrey talked earlier about thinking this team could be a top 5 defense, now if Robert Williams is healthy, you have that guy who could potentially do that. But he's played 26 games out of 164 in 2 years, so to count on him to be that player would be kind of foolish at this point. I mean, it's more like a luxury. If you get it, you get it. If not, you can't account for it happening. So in my opinion, that's where the Blazers' biggest weakness is. And if they aren't that top 5 defense that Torrey's hoping they'd be, I think it's because they're getting kind of exploited with only being able to play a certain style of defense.
Yeah, and I'll also say this, while you shouldn't necessarily expect both your 7th overall pick and then your 16th overall pick to start long-term, in an optimistic world, if you really believe in your scouting department, there should be a pathway to both those guys starting for your team. And instead, you're doubling down on two guys where it's like only one of them can start for this team at a time, which is fine if you're just going the route of like we have young players, high upside players at all other positions, so either way it's going to be a little bit questionable. I get that, but the thing is if you have like a point guard, if you have 4 guys and one's a point guard and then 3 of them are shooting guard / small forward types that can play either of those positions, then you have a little bit more flexibility of just choosing 3 of the best 4. With Klingon and with Young Hansen, it's those guys against each other long-term to be the starting center of this team because you can't start both of them together. And if you start both of them together, it's like, okay, so you're moving Denny and Kamara down to the 2 and the 3, like, is just, and you don't want Young or Klingon defending the 4. It makes no sense. They're both drop centers. So that's the other part of that. That is a little bit weird. But, I mean, if you're just gambling on the talent, and if he doesn't work out, you got Klingon, and you're fine with that. And if he does work out, maybe you got the next Alperen Şengün at the 16th overall pick, and you got great value. Like, that's how I view this pick, is one of those two outcomes, although it's almost kind of like hedging your bets, you should end up having a really, really good starting center down the line, whichever one of those two guys wins out at the end. And you got players at other positions. So that's the other side of the argument.
Yeah, and if they both pan out, maybe you trade one of them for a different type if it's becoming an issue. So
yeah, and hopefully that guy has value.
Yeah. I mean, if they both pan out, I don't see why one of them wouldn't. But yeah. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say before that question came up or that statement came up. But, yeah, we're not saying it's like a bad thing to have two centers. It's just I kind of prefer to have one that's a little bit different. And that was part of the whole confusion on why they took him at 16, because he isn't like necessarily an athletic center that can – I mean, it's weird. He has some functional athleticism, but he's not like a laterally quick center that'll be able to do different things on defense.
Yeah. I also think what went into maybe people having a harsher grade for the Blazers is the fact that Jerami Grant is still on the team, that they didn't trade him this offseason. For me, he doesn't really factor into this offseason in terms of like evaluating this offseason because, as I said before this offseason, they're stuck with him. And I said this before the offseason, if he's still on this team after the offseason, it's not because they didn't try to trade him. It's because they couldn't trade him without giving up assets to attach to him. Because this organization isn't stupid. They know their future is Denny and Tomani at the 3 and the 4. Like, there's absolutely zero doubt about that. And they know that. And they know those two guys have surpassed Jerami Grant. All right? I am confident in that. I can't speak for them, but I fully believe that they know that. And if they don't, then we got bigger problems, okay? But let's just say they know that. Like, it only made sense to trade Jerami Grant this offseason if you could get off his contract. And the fact that they did not do that, I don't think is something to hold against them this offseason. I think it's something to hold against them last offseason when they didn't trade him because they either wanted too much or did not have the guts to just try and get off his contract for expirings. Like, you know, they valued him too heavily because I fully believe you could have at least traded him for expirings last offseason. And this offseason, I don't believe that. I believe his value cratered because last season he was frankly bad. The season before that, he played well enough to have some value even on that contract. So you can hold that against the Blazers, absolutely, and I do. He should not be on this roster. But that's a problem with last offseason. It's not even a problem to me of giving him his initial contract because I fully believe they could have traded him last offseason if they really wanted to. And they didn't really want to. They wanted too much value. Right? Re-signing him was not a bad move if you ended up getting value out of him last offseason. They just completely screwed up this situation by hanging on to him going into this year, and then you saw how he looked this year, and he didn't fit the offense, and then he has that awkward exit interview, and things are just kind of weird here. And now it's like, how many minutes off the bench are they going to play Jerami Grant making $32 million, or are they actually going to start him, and what the hell does that look like? Because that looks like an absolute mess. And they could look at lineup splits last year and say, oh, a starting lineup with, I believe it was Ant, Denny, Tomani, Grant, and Ayton was a really positive lineup for them. And maybe they try and recreate that with Klingon and Jrue. Right? I don't know. But that's a mess if he's starting. It's weird if he's coming off the bench. So yeah, they screwed up that situation. But as far as this offseason goes, like, they already made their bed before this offseason, and now they're lying in it right now.
Yeah, that was... It is why I can't give them a higher grade for the offseason, though, is the Grant contract was bad in itself. And it's almost like they were just like, okay, there's no way we're going to be able to move this contract, so let's just double down and bring in another contract. And it is going to make it so they are kind of fighting that tax line still in the coming years. So we'll see if this team does progress and becomes, whether that's a playoff team or eventually gets up to even higher than just making the playoffs as a goal. Then I would I still want to know if the Blazers under current ownership is willing to go all in to make that happen, or if they're just like, okay, this tax line's always going to be the max you can spend, and you can make moves under that, Joe, but you can't go over that line.
Yeah. Like last offseason's grade for me suffers because of Jerami Grant, not this offseason. That's how I'll conclude that statement. And I understand like the argument that people try to make where it's like, yeah, we got a lot of lengthy, athletic, two-way forwards, right? And Grant's one of those guys. I just don't view Grant as a two-way forward. I don't view him as that caliber of defender. I think he's the third best defensive forward on this team. Unless you're counting Thibault forward, then he's the fourth best defensive forward on this team. Right? Honestly, he's probably the fifth best defensive forward because Chris Murray's a better defender than him. And you know I'm not a Chris Murray fan at all. Grant, I mean, I think a big part of defense, and people don't really count this as defense, it's rebounding, it's different, but like you got to be able to close out defensive possessions by being able to get boards, and Grant really struggles with that. That's a rebounding issue. Some kind of combine that with defense, whatever. Like he just struggles with that, number one. But number two, it's the, all right, you got long athletic guys, you want them to be able to defend guards. I think Denny can do an okay job defending guards. I think Tumati does a fantastic job defending guards. I think Grant does a really bad job defending guards. But he's also not the strongest guy, so I don't view him as the best guy to put up against like big, strong forwards that like to attack downhill, your Paulo Banchero types. I don't view Grant as like a great solution for them. I feel like there's a very specific archetype for him, and that's as a secondary rim protector where he's guarding somebody he doesn't really have to worry about in the corner, or, guarding somebody that doesn't have the ball in their hands, and he can rotate behind a play. The problem is when the Blazers run drop, he's rarely put in that position because it's the big man dropping back, protecting the rim. He's not playing up at the level of the screen. If you're trapping the ball or you're hedging and you're playing two people above the point of the screen, if the ball gets out of that to the roll man behind those two defenders, you have to have somebody come over and help. And I think that's Jerami Grant's best defensive role. But the defense that the Blazers play does not require Jerami Grant doing what he's best at. And what Chauncey has required out of Jerami Grant his entire time here has been, you're going to guard Jalen Brunson, you're going to guard SGA, you're going to guard Jamal Murray. Oh, Jamal Murray hits a game winner on him. Oh, all these guards go off on him. Oh, every time one of these heavy pick-and-roll guards runs a pick-and-roll, Grant is completely screened out of the play. Completely screened out of the play. His technique getting through pick-and-rolls is terrible. So I don't view Jerami Grant as a defensive asset for this team the way this team plays basketball. I think his on-ball defense is a little bit overrated. I think there's a lot of stars that can just kind of have their way with him. And I think his best role is something that the Blazers don't really utilize at all. I think if you have him playing next to Robert Williams and you're having Robert Williams blitz screens, maybe off the bench, then you have Jerami Grant to try and clean up some of that stuff on the backside. But also at the end of the day, Grant in that role has to rebound better because he's the biggest guy around the rim if shots goes up. He has to close out defensive possessions on the glass if you're playing Robert Williams away from the rim as well. And as I said, he really struggles with that. So I just think that's the problem with Jerami Grant defensively, and that's why I don't view him as a defensive asset. I think off the bench, his offense, if he could figure things out in this Blazers offensive system, I think his offense could be a weapon next year. I think he could be a fine bench player. But will he buy into that role, and what does that role look like? What does that offense look like? Is it ISO Jerami because he's coming off the bench and you're trying to keep him happy, and because he's coming off the bench you can justify it because he's playing next to other bench players? You're still going to have one of Scoot. Well, you're still going to have probably two of Scoot, Sharp, and Jrue in the game. You might have Young Hansen minutes, and I don't know. If you're going to play Young Hansen, you might as well put the ball in his hands and see if he can make passes and that sort of stuff. So there's just so many questions with him, but I just don't view him as like the type of guy to insert into conversations about him being a long, lengthy two-way forward, because I just don't think he's really a two-way forward on this team, at least.
But last year he was used in a different role, and he was much better than he had been in the other role.
Explain.
Well, Tamani was the entire season. Tamani played almost every game.
Mm-hmm.
When they had the lineups with Denny, Tamani, and Jerami starting, Jerami was in that role of just being basically a secondary rim protector, not a primary. And then, as for the rebounding, there's no excuse for that. That I completely agree. That is part of defense if you can't finish a possession. So there, I'm not saying that part of it was any better, because it wasn't. But just in terms of the way they used him, he was a lot more effective. Actually had a really good stretch defensively for us last year when we started winning games and stuff like that. Defensively, he was a part of that, even though he definitely was not offensively in most of those games.
Do you think there could be a case made where it's easier for him to look better defensively when there's Tamani at the 2, Denny at the 3, they have all this size?
Well, yeah, anyone would look better defensively like that. I don't. He was playing a different role. Like, he was used as the secondary rim protector, so I'm not sure.
That lineup that they started with when they were starting the 3 forwards was still with Ayton as the center. They still ran a lot of drop, which it's not like black and white where, if you're running drop on every pick and roll, Grant's never going to be in a situation as a secondary help rim protector. Right? It's just he's not going to be in that situation as much, and that's like the role where he serves value to me. So you got a guy that's kind of like scheme specific, or like situationally specific, and you're not running a scheme that puts him in those situations to help you as much as if you were blitzing the pick and roll and having him rotating underneath, having him clean up some of that stuff underneath. That's my problem with the Blazers' defense, and then Grant, like outside of that role, I don't view him as a good defender.
But if you have Tamani and the drop big at the point of attack, Grant doesn't necessarily have to be protecting the rim in that situation. I think as long as he's not being sent through screens and having to guard quicker guards, I think he's adequate enough, and he proved that last season.
Yeah, because he can just sit on a corner shooter. Yeah.
And so, I think it showed, as long as you don't use him in the Tamani role that they used last year or the previous years before Tamani came. I think,
Yeah, but that's kind of exactly my point. Like, anybody can sit on a corner shooter. I've never been impressed with his rotations, like some of the team defense things out onto shooters. But like when you're running drop, the whole goal is you have a big man kind of dealing with a 2-on-1 downhill and able to stop it, so you don't have to rotate from the corner. You don't have to get caught in rotation. And I think the Blazers did a good job of that when they started the 3 forwards, but I think a big part of that was like, okay, Grant could just sit on a corner shooter, right? Because he's not the guy to slow down anybody on the ball. And that's why I don't really view him as like a big defensive asset, or somebody that's like a two-way forward. I think he's like adequate at some things defensively, but I don't view him as somebody that's going to provide a ton of value to your defense.
I kind of disagree. If he's not in the primary role, I think it's not necessarily adding value, but I think he can be part of the solution, which he was. When they started playing better defense, he was still in the lineup, and he was a big part of that as a team defensive unit. Now, that continued a little bit after he sat out the rest of the season. But, once we inserted like Klingon into a major role, like it changed for the whole team pretty much. And I do think Jerami can be a factor on that end, especially if you get some rebounding from your bigs and from other positions. Like Denny was a good rebounder for us and will continue to be. So like I think they were they were happy with how Jerami did defensively last season, and that moving forward, if they can at least get that from him, I think they're fine. Now the question is, do they think he's a better defender than he is, and they're going to at times put him back in those roles where he's not successful and hasn't been in the past? Um, that remains to be seen. But as long as they don't ask too much of him, I think he can be a fine piece. Now it's just making that extra step to, finish it off with rebounds.
Yeah, I think like my final question for this conversation is, outside of being a secondary rim protector, rotating over to the rim as the help guy, what situations do you also like Grant in defensively, like specific defensive situations?
What I think is like the one pass away guy. I think he can get into passing lanes. He can chip onto cutters, or be a presence to where you might not drive to that side because he's shading over to help, not necessarily protecting the rim. Just like one pass away, shading over, you might want to drive to the other side because you see Jerami there. He's got decent length and stuff like that. So like, and and just reputation wise, for some reason, people think he's a much better defender than he is too, and that
Stars don't seem to know that when he's guarding them.
Well, I mean, it's one thing if you're isolated on a guard or no, he can't get through a pick. But I'm talking about just like seeing him out, like if you have a decision to drive right or drive left and you see him shading over on the left side. And I do think he's fine. And analytics back this up. In isolation situations, he's a lot better than in pick and roll situations. So he has been fine at times throughout his career as just an ISO player. Now he might still get scored on like a lot of Blazers did last year, but he has been traditionally okay in that role. But I do agree he does fall asleep sometimes, and he does react slowly both to the ball and rebounds and to closeouts and rotations and stuff like that. But if he's locked in and there's a good team defense around and it's standing out when he doesn't do those things, which I think started to happen last season, forcing players to either show that effort or they're not gonna be playing much. And hopefully that is the case moving forward, to where if he's not having those effort plays with rebounding and closeouts and rotations, that his playing time suffers because of it.
Yeah, you said basically exactly what I was going to say. Like, when he's locked in, like, I think that's kind of the biggest problem is he's not consistent enough at the things that you said that he is good at. Like, he's good at when he's locked in, but when he's not, I think his team defense becomes a little bit of a problem, and I think that's just the story at the end of the day is like he's kind of inconsistent.
Well, I wonder if now that Jrue and Dame are back, I wonder if, because that's going to be a lot different. He was by far the oldest player on the team last year, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if, having, two guys, one he's friends with, one I'm sure they have respect for if they don't know each other very well. I wonder if having those two 35-year-olds, now that he's got a couple vets with him, maybe that he'll feel a little differently about just his role and just being on this team and stuff, and not be so casual about it.
Yeah. I just remember him being one of those guys the past couple of years is being too far off his guy one pass away when he's guarding shooters. Like, he has the length and the quickness to be good stunting at the ball at the nail. Like using his length to try and disrupt passing lanes. I think a big problem is when he starts to, how should I phrase it? Like, he gets tunnel vision towards the ball handler, that's when you get a lot of problems. Like, there's a lot of times there's kick-out passes, and he doesn't seem to know where to rotate. There's a lot of times I feel like he kind of overhelps or plays too far off his guy one pass away and gives up easy threes because of it. That was a huge, huge problem 2 years ago. Wasn't as much of a problem last year. I've seen so much inconsistency with him off the ball as a team defender to, like, trust him on that end. I know he can have good moments because he does have good tools and he should be good. And I'm hoping that what you said with having, like, Jrue and Dame on the team and all that maybe helps him. It's just like, if he's coming off the bench playing 24 minutes a game, is his attitude going to be to, like, lock in on all these little defensive things? Or is it just going to be like, oh, man, screw this, I'm coming off the bench, at least I'm getting paid and I can get my shots up?
Yeah, that remains to be seen, but I do know that, I mean, Denny, it's weird with Jerami. I guess maybe that's the one person Denny might not feel comfortable talking to, but you would think Denny would be able to do that. And like I said earlier, the fact that the Blazers did show so much improvement on defense, I think these things, if there are the issues with Jerami, I think they're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And between Jrue, Dame, and I mean, maybe not Dame on the defensive end, but just in terms of being a leader, and Denny, and then you add a good defensive coach like James Posey. I think between those guys, and of course Chauncey, I just think if you have these issues moving forward on a team that's locked in defensively otherwise, that's going to start to really mount the pressure to not have those lapses. And I think, or maybe it's just wishful thinking, but hopefully Jerami can adapt and you know, not have those issues. So
yeah,
especially with Posey, man, I'm excited to have him.
Yeah.
Just be all over people's cases if they're not bringing it defensively, you know?
Yeah. I will say the one worry I have is you spoke to his defensive reputation. Mm-hmm. Like, does that allow him to get away with stuff that young guys wouldn't? We've seen that with Chauncey and vets in the past, and I'm sure Jrue has a lot of respect for Jerami, where, like, he's coming in maybe looking to mentor young guys, but not Jerami. Even Jeremy's a vet. So will his reputation and him being a vet allow him to get away with maybe having some defensive lapses that other guys, younger guys, either don't have happen because, like, Tamani doesn't have these lapses, right? But other young players can't get away with the same sort of stuff because they don't have the same sort of reputation. Like, that could definitely be a thing next year. We've seen that sort of stuff in the past with veterans on this team, especially under Chauncey Billups. So that's something that needs to be held accountable no matter who. If you're trying to be an elite defensive team, you got to have guys on the floor that are contributing to that. And if somebody like Jerami, who's physically capable as a defender, but a lot of times it seems to be like on the mental side of things and just trying to lock in and be consistent and not mess up his assignments off the ball, like his responsibilities off the ball, especially considering you got Tamani, you got Denny can guard, Thibault will guard the opposing team's best player, even though that can be a mixed bag, you know, like Thibault has his gambles and lapses and gets back cut and has some of his problems defensively, even though he makes a bunch of great plays. Like, Jerami just needs to lock in on being a great off-ball defender. And if he's not doing that, if he's not giving his all towards that, then it's definitely something that needs to be held accountable next year. I think he has a chance at helping this defense next year. I'm just cautious to put trust in that and sit here calling him like a two-way player without seeing him doing it a little bit more consistently than he has the past couple of seasons, especially if his role is going to be downgraded from starter to bench. Like, I don't know what to expect out of Jerami if he's coming off the bench playing 24 minutes a game next year, because that's a mental adjustment for a player. It's tough to go from 35 minutes a game, having the ball in your hands all the time, taking a bunch of shots, to 24 minutes a game. Shoot, it was tough for Jerami, and he was still playing a ton of minutes last year just to not take as many isolation mid-range pull-ups, it seems. And he talked about the offensive changes and after the season. So this year
cried about it.
This year could be a even bigger adjustment for him. So if he struggled with last year's adjustment, and if he didn't even catch up to last year's adjustment, then it's tough to fully trust him going into a year where he should be coming off the bench. So it's wait and see mode for me with him.
I do think, just in terms of not moving him, though, I do think the Blazers, I mean, we obviously know Joe said it's winning time or whatever. Like, I do feel like part of the reason they didn't trade him, if they could have gotten off his contract for, like, let's just say it was the Lakers for, like, Vincent Vanderbilt and Kleba or whatever. I think the thinking is they needed that third forward still if they're going to make the playoffs, and I do think they believe Jerami can still be, a rotation forward on a good team. So that is going to be a huge question mark going into the season. Like you said, if he has a diminished role, will he be okay with that?
Where the
part of his career, he hasn't seemed to care what his role is, but I don't know.
Assuming that's true, you know what the problem is with that? It's that they didn't get that third forward with the 23rd overall pick when they selected Chris Murray.
Yeah.
Because if you use that pick correctly, you should be sitting here like, we can move off Jerami because we got the guy we drafted 23rd overall and he's ready to step in and be a third forward off the bench. But they... Yeah, exactly. But you can't trust Chris in that role. And it's funny because Chauncey, when he's interviewed during Summer League, basically said Chris is as good of a defender as any player on our team, which, one, is ludicrous. And that's not to say Chris is not a good defender, but he's no Tumani. Okay? So don't even go out there and say that. Just a lot of lip service from Chauncey for guys like Chris Murray and Jerami Grant during Summer League, although he was interviewed multiple times, so at some point he's going to get to every player and hyping up all his guys, right? Because we have all Chauncey guys this year, I'm assuming. Finally, we got Chauncey's guys this year. But
except for Dame.
Yeah, well. But at the end of the day, it's like, if Chris could be that guy, then, yeah, it'd be easier to move off Grant, but that is the thing, is like, who is that third forward if you trade Jerami for that package? You don't really have that guy, which is not a reason to keep a guy making that amount of money. Like, especially when you're probably not going to make the playoffs anyway, if we're being honest. Like, they're probably a playing team. Maybe they can squeak their way into the 7th or 8th seed, but you don't make a long-term financial commitment because we can't find a third forward. So we're just going to have this guy making $160 million over 5 years so that when we get a 7th or an 8th seed, he can be our third forward. Like, that just doesn't compute logically. So, but that's the problem, is they could have easily solved that if they cashed in with that 23rd overall pick 3 years ago, but they didn't. And they obviously don't trust Chris to play minutes. So, Chris is going into year 3, and he's not a rotation player, and he's still a sub 30% three-point shooter, so that's the tough part.
Well, they did utilize their MLE this year on Dame, obviously, but that not just the pick itself, but, trading Hart for that pick and not getting that forward in the Hart trade, not using or being in a position to use an MLE, especially like last offseason when a lot of players ended up having to take a lot less money than they wanted. And so just not utilizing those assets to be in a position where you've already had that forward on the team. I agree with that.
Yep. Now, there was something, our guy, Anthony Irwin. It's almost Anthony Irwin month. You remember this time last year we were talking about Anthony Irwin, talking about the Lakers and what they were trying to give up for Jerami Grant. Now, apparently on his radio show, according to our live chat, apparently the Lakers offered Dalton Knecht and Gabe Vincent for Matisse Thybulle. And the Blazers said no without second-round picks. I guess that means they wanted second-round picks back too. I'll just say this. If the Blazers were offered Knecht and... Whoa, where'd Eric go? Did he get collab cammed or did he do that on purpose? It looked like you reached for something, then you went out there. It almost looked like you did it on purpose. Anyway.
No, did not.
Shout out collab cam. Please fix that, Streamlabs. Please. If the Blazers said no to a trade where they were getting back Knecht and Gabe Vincent from Matisse Thybulle, man. I know Knecht looked really bad in Summer League, and I know his value isn't quite what it was. I'm not as high on Knecht as I was a year ago. But what are like two of the biggest needs for this team right now? One is probably a third-string point guard in case Jrue or Scoot misses time. And hopefully somebody that can knock down some threes. The other need is somebody that can swing between the 2 and the 3 and knock down threes as well. And be a movement shooter. That trade gets the Blazers 2 guys that fill both those needs. For Matisse Thybulle, who you don't really need his defense, and like how much is he realistically going to play? How much should he play? I honestly think he probably should not be in the rotation to start next season. I think it should be an 8-man rotation to start next year. You got 3 guards that deserve a ton of minutes. You got 3 forwards. Tamani should probably be playing like 35 minutes a game. Same thing with Denny. So the rest of the forward minutes are going to go to Grant. That's like 26 minutes a game. Then you got your 2 centers, right? It should probably be an 8-man rotation. I think they're going to try and find a way to get Thybulle a few minutes in a 9-man rotation, but I think it's going to come at the expense of, like, this guy's not getting enough minutes. Why are we giving minutes to Thybulle when this guy and this guy are not playing enough minutes? I fully expect that to be a conversation. Instead, it's like you could get Knecht, who's still youngish, and if he develops a little bit, could be exactly what you need as like a 9th man. Somebody that can come in, get streaky from 3, knock down threes, movement threes, attack a closeout. You know, it's a little, I guess you could call theoretical because he wasn't necessarily the, he was a 37% three-point shooter last year on 4.5 attempts per game in 19 minutes. The defense is rough, but it's like, at what point is it going to be like, okay, you know what? We have a ton of good defenders. We can get a guy like Knecht who doesn't have to play every game, but when we're behind and want some shooting, want some guy that can catch on fire, like, that's something that they should value, I think. So if they said no to that trade, I'm very frustrated because I think that trade makes perfect sense for both teams to do.
Well, what's the Blazer? How far away are they from the tax line right now?
That is a good question.
Because Thybulle only makes $11 million something, and Vincent and Knecht together, I think, make 16, 17 million.
Well,
so
I think I think Connect's probably making like 4.5. I'll check. Thybulle's making.
I think it's around 16 million, the 2 of them. So the Blazers would have been taking.
Well, you throw in Duop Reith in that trade.
Yeah, maybe, but
Duop plus, I'll do the math. Duop plus Thybulle is barely more than 13 mil.
The Lakers only offered it because they needed to save money so they could sign Smart at the time they offered it. So that wouldn't have worked to send them back another player. They only offered that particular trade to save money.
Knecht is $4 million. Vincent is 11.5. So yeah, it's 15.5 mil.
So I wonder if
it still might put him in the tax, even with
the Blazers didn't want to add $4.5 million onto their cap. Right?
Would you have thrown Chris Murray to a third team if a third team at a trade exception was willing to take him? Would you have thrown that in that trade and done it? Because I probably would have.
I mean, that's a stupid question. I think you and I both would do that in a heartbeat, but I don't think they value either of those players coming back enough over Thybulle to warrant then dropping a player they actually do like for some reason. So I don't think the actual team would have considered doing that.
I mean, but here's the thing. It's Jody's final hurrah. She can finally prove that she was willing to spend money on the team, Eric.
Yeah, that's not.
Listen, I don't blame them for not going in the tax. I just think, like, if they made that move for if they said no to that move for basketball reasons, I have an issue with that. If they said no to that move because luxury tax, okay, fine. I get it, but
the luxury tax is a basketball reason.
But like, even if they weren't against the luxury tax, I feel like they would say no to that move. I feel like they like Thibault more than both guys, even though both guys fill a need and Thibault really doesn't. So, yeah. That's my thoughts on that. And as Eric Olson says, it's like Summer League, yeah, he was 37% last year. He got traded, and then the trade got rescinded. That seemed to mess with him as a rookie. I'm sure that was tough to go through. Like, needs to grind through it, whatever. But he is an okay athlete for a shooter and knocks down threes and can hit threes off movement as well. Like, he fills that need for the Blazers. Gabe Vincent would give him a third-string point guard in case Jrue or Scoot misses some time. Like, in Vincent's expiring. So the trade makes a ton of sense. But yeah, like Anthony Irwin said, the Blazers wouldn't do it without second round picks, so I don't really know what that means. I don't think they're going into luxury tax for second round picks. So, you know, it's like, was this trade offered before the Dame thing? When did they know the Dame thing was going to happen? There's like timeline questions here. But at the end of the day, like, that's the type of trade the Blazers should be willing to make. Do you expect Thibault to be in the rotation next season on opening night if everybody's healthy? How many minutes do you think he'll play? Chat, you can answer this as well.
Yeah, I expect him to be in the rotation. I don't think it's going to be heavy minutes, like 12 to 15 minutes, but I do think that he will find a way to play some minutes simply because I don't know, like between him and Jerami, I think I just don't see them playing Chris over Matisse if it comes down to those two, obviously, because you said everyone was healthy. So I think he is going to play a few minutes over Chris Murray, at least initially.
Yeah. So my minutes predictions opening night. This is gonna be a fun game. Who knows who we're even playing, right? So maybe it's a blowout. But like, I want to see how many minutes are left over for Thibault here. So I feel like Jrue 34, Sharp 33, Scoot 28, Kamara 36, Denny 35. We'll do Klingon like 26. We'll do Rob Will 18. So there's like 4 minutes of a small ball lineup. And we'll do Grant like 28 as well. Does all that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
There's 2 minutes left over.
Yeah.
There's 2 minutes left over. So it's like, all right.
Well, what did you say for Grant?
28.
Okay.
I said 28.
Maybe cut his minutes a little bit.
So, like, let's do... How can we get Thibault to 10 minutes? Grant goes to 26. Let's do Scoot 27, Sharp 32, Jrue 33, Kamara 30.
Let's do Jrue like 30 because he's 35.
Yeah, but Chauncey played against him, Eric. And back in his day, you know, Chauncey, you know, we've heard it with Grant, and that's why he puts Grant on point guards. Length bothered him a lot. I don't know. Don't you see like game one Jrue playing 34 minutes? Because I do. I see Chauncey just loving that he has Jrue Holiday on his team and not wanting him to come out of the game. I don't know.
I could definitely see them having a minutes restriction on him just to keep him healthy this season. I could see them telling Chauncey 30 minutes a game or something.
But Joe doesn't meddle.
And not meddling, just have it come from the training staff or whatever.
All right, so we got Thibault to 11 minutes with the following minutes breakdown. I'll sort from greatest to least. All right, we got. Well, we'll give Tumani 36. We'll give Thibault 10 minutes here. All right, so we got Tumani playing 36, Avdia playing 35, Sharp playing 32, Jrue playing 30, Scoop playing 27, Grant playing 26, Klingham playing 26, Rob Will playing 18, Thibault playing 10. I feel like that's a pretty good opening night's minutes prediction. We'll see how close we get if we remember this conversation at all, which we probably won't unless somebody can post this clip in the Discord or remind us on opening night. But, like, that's too few minutes for Scoot. Honestly, that's really the only problem I have with it. I would like to get Sharp like 34 minutes a game, 35 minutes a game, too, if possible. I don't really have a problem with him playing 32 minutes. But, like, Scoot, I think, should be playing 31, 32 minutes a game. So we're right back to, like, Scoot. We're right back to that conversation, probably. But, like, see, like, if you're not playing Thibault, you give 5 of those minutes to Scoot. Right? You maybe give a couple of those minutes to Sharp. I'd be really happy with that minutes breakdown. But I fully expect them to force feed like Thibault 10 minutes a game, even if it ends up meaning like Scoot plays 27 instead of 32 or 33. Like, and people say, "Oh, Scoot's a point guard, Thibault's a wing. Like, how does it matter?" Well, the more Scoot plays, the more Holiday plays the 2, and that takes away minutes from that position. Right? And Sharp can bump up from the 2 to the 3, so it kind of goes together. Mm-hmm. But anyway, final tally results on the offseason grade from our chat. We have 53% say B, 36% say A, 7% say C, 2% say D or an F. So 91% of fans said an A or a B. I think we probably did this last year. I wonder what it was last year.
I think it was pretty bad last year.
I wish we kept track of this sort of stuff. But yeah.
Trevor.
I mean, last offseason, people were happy about the Denny trade and were okay with the Klingham pick. I feel like it maybe wasn't this positive, but it was pretty close.
They were okay with that at the draft time, but then all the inaction, not signing a single free agent, not making a single other trade, because most people were like, it's the constant goalpost. But at the time, you know, people were disappointed that there weren't any other moves last summer. And then same thing happened at the deadline, Tori. You know, everyone's like, oh, they're going to trade Jerami, they're going to trade Anthony, they're going to make all these moves. And then they do nothing. And then it's like, oh, well, it might be better to do that this offseason, you know, like. But I think at the time, if we just took polls of like, would you be disappointed if the Blazers did nothing at the trade deadline like a month before it?
Yeah.
Like, everyone would say yes.
Yeah.
And then last offseason, I think everyone was kind of disappointed that nothing happened after the draft. Like, literally nothing.
Yeah. Okay, B's taking the lead, but for a second, D/F was the lead in this poll, Eric. I basically asked chat what would they grade this offseason if the Blazers never said Dame. My grade would go from a B to a C-. I'd probably give it a C-.
Yeah, C-, D+ for me. Because
just like more inactivity, you know?
Yeah, so to me, the Dame thing is symbolic of the fact that both Dame, like, kind of, you know, put whatever happened to bed, and Joe actually tried to mend that fence and reached out to Dame and stuff like that. So I think it's more just the signings, like, symbolizes that, and even if it was purely because Dame wanted to be in Portland and was willing to accept whatever else that came with that, I think it's important, or an important step for Joe as a GM to be able to, not let whatever happened or his ego or something get in the way of Dame coming back. And so just the fact that he was willing to be open to Dame coming back too, I do think that leads to me having a little bit more faith that he's turned a corner possibly this offseason, and in turn lets me grade him a little bit more favorably for his other moves. Whereas if that didn't happen, like let's just say Dame signed with Boston or something, I'd be like, okay, we have a 35-year-old Jrue, and what the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do think that the Dame signing, not only because it's Dame, but I do think it just showed that maybe Joe is willing to do a little bit more than it seemed like he's been willing to do to win.
Yeah, and he did something in July.
Yeah.
A very symbolic move, man. Save the offseason in a way, in my opinion. The thing is, a lot of national media are like, yeah, good feel good story, but doesn't really mean anything for like basketball reasons, and I just vehemently disagree with that. I think next season people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, he's not playing next season. He'll be a great locker room presence, a great mentor, and also vibes matter. The fan base is reinvigorated, which I think matters for home games, right? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the Blazers' home record is this year, but I think Dame's going to be a great presence for this young team. And I think that does matter, even when he's not playing. So, but 39% say B and 39% say C, 6% say A, and 15% say a D/F. So I guess that comes out to like a C+, because you had more for D/F than A. I really wish they just let us put 5 options here, but yeah. Anyway, that's our thoughts on this offseason. That's our thoughts on what's coming up for your Portland Trail Blazers. Coming up for us, we'll have another live stream Thursday. Hopefully
You'll have another.
Oh, are you gone on Thursday?
I'm gone the next 5 shows.
The next 5 shows. Okay. I'm glad. I almost thought about like not doing a stream today because, dude, Saturday, I was just laying in bed with like an eye patch on my eye because it hurt to open it. Like it was just real, like searing pain to open my eye. And it was just like shooting pain throughout my eyeball. Like on Saturday, it was one of the most unbearable things I've ever had to deal with. Like eye ulcers. No, it's not fun. So today was like the first day I could like keep my eye open regularly without it hurting, like really bad. Yeah, dude, it sucks. Sorry. I'm just bummed I'm not going to be able to play basketball this week. So.
You can't wear the scuba goggles?
I mean, my right eye is blurry. My right eye is blurry, and also I bought a second pair of glasses, so maybe on Thursday I will. Because I don't like the glasses with the pads. They hurt my nose, man. So I got some that don't. Here's the thing, though. My prescription is so strong. Like, these frames are so thick. I don't know if you can tell, but that's, yeah. It like bends light weird, and it gives me a headache during the day. I'm just suffering, man. I'm just struggling. So, yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be better Thursday, and I don't plan on keeping the glasses. It's a look, I guess, but it's not a long-term look for me.
It looks good.
Kevin says you are blind. I really am blind, man. I really am blind. Like, I can't read the chat without these on right now, and the screen's like arm's length away from me, so it's rough. But yeah, hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week. I mean, I'll probably just do a solo stream on Thursday, and then I'll probably get Stephen Vaughn on for one of these streams for all you Stephen Vaughn stands out there. I know he has a big fan base, a big fan group. We need to come up with a name for them. A name similar to the Cronies for the, I guess you can call them the Vaughnies. Nah, it doesn't really work. We'll come up with a name, but yeah, I'll have to come up with some fun things while Eric is gone. Where do you want to share where you're going? Where are you going?
I'm going down to LA. I'm meeting Rich on Sunday.
Oh yeah, you said you're meeting Rich. LA with the family, yeah.
Yep.
Like Disneyland and
Yep.
Cool.
Universal Studios.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to California in like a decade. I want to go on a road trip down there this fall sometime. Catch a Niners game, catch a Blazers road game. That'd be pretty cool. You know, at Kings or Warriors Arena. Both arenas are newer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get to see what a new arena looks like since the Moda Center's so freaking old. So we'll see if I get around to doing that. But
yeah, the rest of my family's never been to San Francisco, so we're gonna stop there on the way too. So
nice.
That'll be fun.
Nice, and you can you can stop at In-N-Out Burger on the way to California, since they're moving out of California or whatever the deal is with that, and they're putting one up like 10 minutes north of me, which is insane.
Just the
headquarters, yeah.
The headquarters is moving. But anyways, ever since they got In-N-Out here, it's not quite as fun. Like it used to be like, oh, you can only get In-N-Out if you go on a road trip, you know, or if you're on vacation. But now you can get it wherever.
I forget what it tastes like. I am excited to just compare it to Burgerville because I think Burgerville might be better. But I'm a Burgerville fan, so.
You've had it out before.
Like, when Zach Collins was a rookie playing in Summer League, yeah, I don't remember.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had it in Vegas.
Definitely going to get some In-N-Out on the way.
Yeah. I feel like some people voting in this poll have never had Burgerville, though, so. I don't know. I'll compare them. I'll report back once the Burgerville and Ridgefield is open.
It's very it's becoming very cliche to be like anti In-N-Out Burger.
I mean, I remember In-N-Out Burger being good, and now
it's not like it's not insanely good. But.
Is Burgerville one of those In-N-Out ripoffs? That's no, it's not. Burgerville has been around for a long time before In-N-Out was popular. I don't know how long, but yeah. Burgerville's legit. This is me trying to get a Burgerville sponsor. That would be such a sick sponsor, man. Sometimes I just sit here and dream about, like, what would be a cool sponsor? Cool local sponsor. Tillamook Cheese in Burgerville. And they have a Tillamook cheeseburger, and I could just combine the two sponsorships, and it sounds really, really good. I literally had Burgerville earlier today. So, anyway. Anything else, Eric?
No, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you have a good one. Oh, I have to mention, shout out to my daughters. FC Portland soccer team won the championship in a tournament over the weekend. All got like medals and team trophy and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Nice. Congrats. Yeah. Did you celebrate like Josh Naylor when... Do you even understand that reference?
I know who Josh Naylor is, but I don't know what you mean. Yeah.
Chat, if you know what I'm talking about, just imagine Eric. Anyway. One of the things he's done before, hit a home run and starts like hitting his helmet with the bat. I don't know. You'd have to look it up on YouTube. He's the guy the Mariners just traded for, and he's very intense. And I'd be curious if you like the intensity or if even you think it's a little bit too much. Because kind of crazy. But yeah. Anyway, you'll be back on. Jeez.
It's like 3 weeks from today.
So you'll be gone So you'll be back Monday, August 18th?
Yep.
That's like one of those weeks we normally take off. How long should I keep Eric hidden from you guys? Should we take 2 weeks off at the end of August? I'm kidding. Damn. Yeah. See, like once the going gets tough
with you when I get home.
I need a vacation, but I won't be on one, so I might as well be here. But yeah, once the going gets tough in terms of content, Eric ditches me for a vacation, and I support it, and I don't blame him. It's I would too if I could, but I'll be here holding down the fort. So, appreciate you guys.
If it lined up to where Monday and Thursday was a night where I was like not doing anything, it'd be one thing, but pretty much every one of the Monday, Thursdays is like something I'll be doing. And this Thursday it'll be driving, but the other Mondays and Thursdays will be at theme parks or whatever, which I get my money's worth, and especially stay till close because that's the best time to like run around and ride all the rides where there's hardly any people there. So, I'll be out having fun. Unfortunately, on those nights, so it just didn't work out to film from down there or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's all good. You shouldn't be worrying about filming August content while you're on vacation anyway. But yeah, I'll find a way. I like the challenge of coming up with ideas, and I like the challenge of solo streaming, and just keeping the conversation going for like an hour and a half by myself. It's more challenging, but I like embracing the challenge. I embrace adversity. Dame's my favorite player. I embrace adversity. Anyway, I'll embrace you guys on Thursday when our next live stream is. I will react to Jrue Holiday's press conference. And maybe Eric will dip in chat and give his thoughts.
Yeah.
But, I'll catch you guys then. Have a good rest of your Monday night. Hit a like on the way out of here. Easiest way to support the channel. Subscribe if you're new. Share it with a friend. Share it with a family member. Share it with an enemy if they're a Blazer fan. And I'm out of here. We're out of here. Eric's going to enjoy his vacation. Until next time. As always, peace out. Go Blazers!